G'day YouTube, baubles on a lot here with my personal nomination for the Trumpletonian Global Warming Prize winning Scumbags of 2019. And believe it or not, that signal honour goes to the British Bureau of Meteorology. So I say, shortly before midday on the 2nd of July, in me t-shirt, in midwinter, where it's 18.5 degrees Celsius, in a ventilated, insulated, shaded hutch for a maximum minimum recording thermometer fixed at head height on the shady side of the tree. So that's measuring the air temperature here in the shade. Nearly 19 degrees in midwinter. I'm recording it. Professor James Lovelock, he of the Gaia hypothesis, the theoretical nuclear physicist, once famously said that you shouldn't need a vast staff in a government-funded laboratory in order to do world-class research. He said you should be able to do world-class research on a social security payment living in a garden shed. So I'm recording my observations as I can, because I can. Now let's see what the bloody pommies have decided to do in their wisdom. As told in 15 June's New Scientist magazine. Reading from page 14, news, carbon emissions, climate monitoring axed. A crucial air sampling scheme in the Atlantic is ending. One of the things about climate science denialists among the politicians and the economists is they really hate the fact that the scientists keep coming up with data. So once the politicians get sufficient power within the bureaucratic system, they tend to like to defund scientific research into biology, ecology, climate science, atmospheric physics, thermodynamics, because they don't want to know. And their theory is that if there's no research, there's no data, and if there's no data, there's no proof that any problem exists. Bear that little principle in mind. The world's ability to track rapidly rising levels of greenhouse gases has suffered a major blow with the axing of a vital monitoring scheme on a UK-governed island. For 40 years, the US and UK have been monitoring concentrations of carbon dioxide and methane on Ascension Island. The air sampling station is the only one in the Central Atlantic and one of just a handful in the tropics, providing crucial data about how oceans are absorbing carbon dioxide and the atmosphere's response to our emissions. But the operation has been downsized and will soon end entirely, raising concerns in the scientific community. The UK's Met Office, which runs the program in partnership with the US National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration (NOAA) and Royal Holloway University of London, has halved the number of its staff it sends to the island from 4 to 2 as a result of damage to the island's only runway, which limits flights. That led the job of air sampling to become a voluntary one. And in late April, the Met Office took the decision that it could no longer assist NOAA with this task. A key piece of equipment is also no longer working. A machine for measuring the composition of the air, which was installed in 2010 and billed as, quote, vital, unquote, and a, quote, major UK contribution to global understanding of the greenhouse gases, unquote, hasn't been calibrated for 2 years and is now offline. Trying to model global greenhouse gas budgets without Ascension measurements is like trying to ride the Grand National on a horse with 3 legs, says Juan Nisbet at Royal Holloway. The Met Office says it will still support Royal Holloway in the monthly job of collecting flasks of air from the island and flying them to the UK. But even that monitoring will soon end, as the UK Research Council that pays for the work has decided that it will no longer fund the project beyond April 2020. Ed Dlugachenky, Dlugokensky, Dlugachenky, at NOAA, says Ascension's location and the decades of data gathered there make this a particularly bad blow. Quote, long measurement series are useful for looking at subtle changes, possibly caused by a changing climate, unquote, he says. It is getting harder to maintain a global air sampling network, says Dlugachenky. Some cooperating agencies who originally contacted us 2 or 3 decades ago to join our network are now less keen to work with us or are asking for some financial support to keep sampling, he says. The Met Office says the primary task of its staff on the island is to assist the UK Ministry of Defence, bracket MOD, close bracket there. I'll say that again. The UK Meteorological Office says the primary task of its staff on the island is to assist the United Kingdom Ministry of Defence, MOD, there. With a smaller team, we've had to critically review all of the non-Ministry of Defence work we carry out, and unfortunately, we are no longer able to assist NOAA with their air sampling on the island due to the task complexities and levels of training involved, says nominative determinists. Get ready for this. Vicky Smiley at the Meteorological Office. Vicky Smiley. Isn't it that a laugh? Isn't it? Isn't that a laugh? Vicky Smiley from the UK Met Office announcing that even before Brexit, what's left of broken Britain is too bloody broke to continue paying for air to be sampled at its base on the Ascension Island. Could that be perhaps because it's in the interest of certain politicians and economists that nobody knows what atmospheric global carbon dioxide concentration is out in the middle of nowhere where there's no local factory or car emission to be blamed? Could that be perhaps? One wonders. Anyway, for a little bit of extra bonus content, in this same New Scientist, back on page 5, wiping out Earth's plants. Nearly 600 species have gone extinct over the past 250 years as a result of human activity. Our onslaught on the natural world has caused an average of more than 2 plant species to vanish from the planet every year since the middle of the 18th century. That is, according to the first comprehensive attempt to chart such extinctions worldwide. The best guess had been that fewer than 150 species had gone extinct, but this was based on the International Union for Conservation of Nature's Red List of Threatened Species, which doesn't cover all plants. The true number seems to be nearly 4 times higher at 571 species lost between 1753 and 2018. Researchers came up with this figure after analysing a previously unpublished database kept by the Royal Botanic Gardens Kew in the UK. Species destroyed include the Chile sandalwood, Santalum fernandesianum, which was only found on one group of Pacific islands, and the St Helena olive tree, Nesiota elliptica, which only lived on the Atlantic island it is named after, bracket nature, ecology and evolution. The rate of loss is happening as much as 500 times faster than the background rate of extinction for plants, the speed at which they are lost without humanity's impact. But even the grim toll of 571 is likely to be lower than the reality, says Ailes Humphreys of Kew. That is because some biodiverse parts of the world aren't very well studied, and some plants have been reduced to such low numbers that they are considered functionally extinct, unquote. The number of plants killed off is greater than the combined figure for mammals, amphibians and birds. That is what researchers would expect, given there are many more plant species overall. However, the geography of the extinctions in plants and animals is strikingly similar. Island species are inherently vulnerable and have been particularly badly hit, as have species living in regions with a tropical or Mediterranean climate. Hawaii has seen more losses than anywhere else in the world, with 79 extinctions. Other hotspots include Brazil, Australia, and Madagascar. Pictured. And so, what are the naked apes doing about it? What are they thinking about? What are they pouring their energy into? Well, we're coming up to nearly 50 years since a small step for a man and a giant leap for mankind was written on the script, and Neil Armstrong left out the A. Fluffing his lines for a live television audience of 600 million people, of whom I was one, sitting in the school assembly hall watching the one black and white television that the school had back in 1969 when I was 8. And so, 50 years down the track, the advertisements are talking about going to Mars, as are the feature articles. Nobody's ever landed anything bigger and heavier than a Volkswagen onto the surface of Mars. About a tonne. And they thought they knew what they were doing, and they wanted to scale all that up. So they built a parachute, and they put it on a rocket, and they took it up above most of the atmosphere, and then at hypersonic speed they gave it a go at opening, and it ripped itself to shreds. And they didn't understand that, so they went back and they had another go with a parachute just like the one that worked on Mars last time. And when they put it on a skyrocket and they tried it in the atmosphere at the right speed and the right density, it ripped itself to shreds as well. So they came to the reluctant conclusion that they didn't know as much as they thought they knew, because they don't know why the last big parachute they used actually worked, and that means they got no idea how to land anything bigger with parachutes, which is apparently now why everybody's starting to fantasize about propulsive landings on Mars for the colony that they want to have, because they reckon humanity needs to move off planet Earth because the economy has made such a thundering mess of the ecology and deconstructed so many homeostasis feedback loops of the biosphere that Earth has had it, and we've got to find somewhere else to live. So they want to go to a dead desert in a vacuum, an irradiated dead desert in a vacuum, where the soil is corrosive and the water is there as ice under the poles if it's there. And that is the plan, Stan, because otherwise they're fully committed to attempting to grow the economy until the wheels fall off the biosphere, because manned space flight is diversional therapy for intelligent nerds who don't want to think about anything that matters or where the track they're on is headed, because they're having fun playing with shiny new technology, buying lots of shiny new landfill and then throwing it away, while saving up for their next fossil fuel fume farting holiday to fuck whatever's left of the biosphere. Quickly, glamping, glamorous camping, luxury accommodation. Hurry up, you bastards, before there's nothing left. Last thing that the politicians and the economists want is the scientists telling the normal little sheeples in the suburbs just how fucking bad shit already is. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao. Such is life. Ciao.